Windfall is a charity that provides new donated clothing to social service agencies around the GTA. Types of social service agencies include shelters, immigration centers, and job-ready training programs. Windfall is considered one of the most effective charities in Canada. For every $1 spent to operate Windfall, $56 goes back into the hands of those in need.
Hi, I'm Nikki Riley.
And I'm Sophia Rancides.
And we're here today with Linda Marlene Eels, who's going to share with us her story of her experiences with Windfall. How were you affected by poverty, and how did that experience make you feel?
Well, I was talking to you a little bit earlier about my childhood. I grew up in an alcoholic home. Our mother and father split when I was quite young, and so that put a little bit of financial pressure on us, to say the least. My mom actually did a wonderful job of holding down a number of jobs to buy a house for us, and we did receive some support from my father, but we still lived under a lot of financial strain. When I think of Windfall, of course, I always think about the clothing aspect, and so when we were kids, we didn't really have tons of new things, and there was a deep sense of shame, and I think at that time that shaped my level of confidence, and so it was rather low, and I always felt like I wasn't part of other groups. So I think that was kind of built into me at a young age, was not having a great deal of confidence from the poverty that we suffered.
How do you feel about the poverty crisis in Toronto, and why is it happening? What can be done to help?
There's so many different factors that contribute to poverty in Toronto and in our country as a whole. I think that it's systemic. More and more over the last 10 years in particular, we're seeing a greater divide between the wealthy, like the very wealthy, and the very poor, and we're losing our middle class. I believe that in Canada now our middle class is at about 50%, whereas in a country, say like Sweden or Denmark, you're up to 75%. So when we look at these numbers, what is it in society, what is it in our different systems that is actually creating these conditions? These are really complex questions. I'm actually going to a film screening of a film called Poor No More. I don't know if you've heard about this film, but it explores these kind of questions, and it looks at different countries and how they've created solutions. Some of those are definitely higher taxes, and most of us Canadians, when we hear higher taxes, I mean, look at our last election, we're like, no more taxes, and so we all vote for that. And yet, do we really understand what cutting taxes means? It actually means cutting our programs and services to provide the support for people that have been at a disadvantage to actually gain a foot up in that. So I think it's about shifting awareness, definitely public awareness that in fact we need to have sustainable programs. I also see a solution, again, I think Windfall is a wonderful example of this in social enterprise. So with their bridal boutique, so they're actually getting these beautiful dresses and then they're selling them to the public, fundraising. So it's very sustainable. They're training people, and there's a number of other organizations. So I see that there are solutions. It's just it's spreading the awareness about it. Yeah.
Did you find that there was a shortage of clothing within the shelters?
So I was very fortunate in the sense that I didn't actually have to turn to a shelter. However, through my work with in advocacy with Windfall, there is no question that there is a shortage, and this is an ongoing shortage. I was recently doing some work with developing, and I hardly say I'm developing, but helping to develop the new Kids Club program with Windfall, and this is a program that helps engage younger children to raise funds for other children that are in need. And so in looking at that, I'm just seeing the numbers of children that are in these crisis situations coming from an abusive home, being literally ripped out of that and put into a shelter, not even having the clothes on their back, and then not having anything like a knapsack or a winter coat to go to this new school that they've got to go to. So here is a great need, and all the emotions and the sense of shame that goes along with that. So But we know that they're needed, and there's not enough to go around. And so yes, there's a great need. Yeah.
You spoke briefly early on about the importance of new clothing versus used clothing. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
The bottom line with that to me is dignity. When you're giving someone something and it's new, you're saying you are worth this. It's symbolic for the sense of worth. So it's not so much about what it is. I mean, I love vintage clothing. It's not even a question, like I can go and shop in vintage stores, but it's not about that. It's about being in a position of vulnerability and receiving something new that is representative of value. And so for me, that's, it's just immense, and it does reflect on your dignity. When you're down and out and you're already feeling just horrible about who you are, to receive something new it helps you to sit with more confidence. And that is incredibly important when you're trying to rebuild your life and go in and get a job or start a new business or whatever it is, to have that confidence. It reflects outward. And do we know that in the world, you go in for a job interview, if you don't look sharp, that we are immediately judged? We have 2 seconds. So if we're not looking good and we can't feel that we have a sense of confidence, then our chances are greatly lessened. So yeah, it's essential.
If you could tell the GTA one thing about the importance of Windfall, what would it be?
I think again it goes back to dignity. By giving to Windfall, you're investing in your community, you're investing in others so that they thrive, so that we can all thrive. So if we all have a sense of dignity, then we stand stronger together. Now that you've heard Linda's success story, find out how you can make a difference in your community. Log on to www.windfallbasics.com to find out how you can